Okay, so it is just after 4 o'clock now here in Dublin. I know it's different because we have a lot of different time zones dialed in today, but I'll kick off anyway. Hi there and welcome to Disaggregated Routers for Internet Peering together with Exaware. My name is Ciara McCarthy and I'm the Global Director for EPS Global. This is the 8th episode in our webinar series, It's Open Networking. You can access our past webinars and sign up for future ones on our website at epsglobal.com. Okay, so internet peering plays a huge part in making sure users have access to content. I guess it's why so many of you have joined us from all across the globe. So we have people on today from all across the US, Europe, Africa, Israel, Peru, India, the Philippines, and that's just to name a few. I'd like to welcome you all today and thank you for joining us. So just a quick background on EPS for anyone who doesn't know us. What we do in EPS is we specialize in open networking solutions that help businesses take control over how they configure and scale their networks using bare metal hardware that's more cost effective to buy and more efficient to run. So we have all of the hardware, the software, and the technical resources to help you deploy open, disaggregated and standards-based solutions that deliver the high quality connectivity that your customers demand, all while delivering you cost savings. We have 28 global locations and we carry stock, so you can save yourself time and money, not to mention the hassle of dealing with multiple vendors and delivery timelines. We're also a member of the Open Compute Project, and we're an Open Compute Project solution provider on their marketplace. So I would just like to introduce our speakers today. So first off, we'll hear from Barry McGinley. Barry's our systems engineer or pre-sales engineer for Europe, EMEA. He primarily works on proof of concepts for data center, service provider and enterprise deployments and leads the adoption of new bare metal hardware for carrier and telecom solutions. He provides the first layer of tech support to our customers and an in-depth expertise of open networking landscape covering all of the open source software and the hardware options. Barry's based in Dublin and he's the author of a popular tech blog on our website at epsglobal.com. He'd like me to add that he's also an avid Celtic supporter and enjoys a pint of Guinness. Joining us today also is Ben Afshari, who's the VP of Sales and Business Development from Exaware. Ben has been working with communication service providers for more than a decade, holding senior sales and business development positions, most recently with Amdocs, where he led the network transformation through NFV orchestration solutions, helping CSPs in EMEA with their cloud migration to grow their business. Before joining Amdocs, Ben was Regional Vice President of Sales at ECI Telecom, where he was instrumental in expanding and growing ECI business in Taiwan, Vietnam, and South Korea. We're also joined today by David Zelig, who's the CTO of Exaware. David has more than 20 years experience in the data communication industry. He was a senior system architect at Orchid or Cargent, developing DSL and metro system deployed at scale in Japan. He's also worked for Oversea Networks and PMC Sierra. David holds an MBA from Tel Aviv University and an MSc, Masters in Communication Theory. He also holds more than 20 patents in various fields in systems and communications. So I'd like to welcome both Ben and David, and we're delighted to have you join us today. Okay, so just a bit of housekeeping. If anyone has questions throughout this session, just put them into the Q&A window at the bottom of your screen and we will come to them at the end. Anything that we don't manage to cover today, we will follow up with you directly over email or over the phone. And with that, I will hand over to Barry.
Thanks, Ciara. It was a lovely introduction. I haven't had a pint of Guinness in months because the pub closed, but anyway. As Ciara said, thanks everybody for joining us, whether it's morning, afternoon or evening. We really appreciate your time. So what we're going to cover today is I'm going to have a look at EPS and what we actually do within open networking. Then I'll have a high level overview of the open networking ecosystem, who are the players involved, and a little look at the hardware. Then Ben and David will take us through who are Exaware, the benefits of disaggregation, their portfolio, internet peering, and distributed denial of service mitigation at the peering point. And then we'll have a couple of questions at the end, depending on time. So it'll be about 40 minutes all in. Okay, so as Ciara mentioned, we're 21 years old and we've been involved in open networking now for 7 or 8 years. And that happened through, we became global distributors for EdgeCore networks. So for anyone who doesn't know EdgeCore, they're a subsidiary of the Acton Group, who are an OEM, ODM out of Taiwan. And if you've used a switch that's not Cisco, you've more than likely used an Acton Group switch or an EdgeCore switch. So I think pretty early in the relationship with EdgeCore, we realized that the normal rules of distribution weren't going to apply to open networking. And there was two reasons for that. So it was about 2013, so very early adoption stage, and it was just kind of the hyperscalers that were doing it then. So Facebook, Google, Amazon were working with bare metal. And then the second reason was that the hardware is only one piece of the puzzle. So we needed to go out and start talking to software vendors, and not just some of the software vendors, all of the software vendors. And we like to make that distinction because it's very important we don't kind of pigeonhole a piece of software in somewhere just because we know the software vendors better. So we like to say we're vendor agnostic when it comes to the software. And we also provide other turnkey solutions for our customers. So I suppose we try and simplify open networking. So it can be a little daunting at times. Customer comes in, whether it's from the software or the hardware side. Let's say they picked a switch, and now they have to look at software, they have to look at compatibility, now they have to look at interoperability with optics. So it can get a bit messy. So we take that hassle away for our customers. So we'll install NOSes, install the licensing, bundle in transceivers that we know are interoperable with DACs and cabling and so on. So basically the switches are ready to slide into a rack. And we do this for our software vendor partners as well, with the added benefit of we do branding and other bells and whistles as well. Okay, so I want to just look at the ecosystem a little bit and explain a little bit about the organizations involved. So we have three main organizations. We have the OCP, which is the Open Compute Project, which primarily looks after the hardware. And then we have the ONF, the Open Networking Foundation, and TIP. And I'm going to speak about both of them now. So I'm not going to go into the whole history of open networking. So I'm going to skip forward to 2016, and the ONF begins work on its CORD platform. So CORD is central office re-architected as a data center. And I suppose the idea behind it was for carriers and telcos to kind of reap the same benefits as those hyperscalers did before them. So Facebook, Google, Amazon, and so on, using bare metal and open networking. Skipping forward to 2019, reference designs were released for some of the projects within the platform, like SIBA, which is software-enabled broadband access, Trellis, ODTN, OMAC, and more. Then by the end of 2019 and into 2020, there's production rollouts of these. So there's some there: T-Mobile, Comcast, Turk Telecom, AT&T, Deutsche Telekom, Telefonica, and a lot more. Obviously, things have slowed down a little bit because of the pandemic, but it's been very successful up to this point. Okay, so the second group is TIP, or the Telecom Infra Project. So they started around the same time as the CORD project started with the ONF in 2016. And they work very closely with the OCP and the ONF. So obviously a lot of the hardware is OCP certified. And then with the ONF, a lot of the projects, there's a little bit of overlap because they're both looking after carriers and telcos. So, and the membership would be very similar. So they work closely as to not overlap too much, that they're not wasting their time working on the same projects. There's over 500 member organizations. We're members ourselves. I know Exaware are members as well. And there's a marketplace called the TIP Exchange. So on that exchange, you can see individual products and you can see actual end-to-end solutions as well. On the project side, it's split into three distinct categories. So we've access, so that's our RAN access. I'd say everyone has heard of Open RAN at this stage. That's a project within that. Then we have transport or backhaul, which is from the RAN back to the data center. And then we've core and services. So there's a few projects in there on slicing and segmentation and things like that. So just some general things about open networking, like attributes wise. I said this is quite high level. We've bare metal, white box, and bright box. So bare metal is a bare metal switch with no operating system on. You just get a bootloader, which is called ONI, which allows you to install the NOSes. Then we've got white box, which is bare metal with an operating system sitting on it. And then we've got bright box, which is bare metal with an operating system, but it has a badge on the front. So HP and Dell would be examples of bright box. Basically a bare metal switch with their own NOS sitting on top of it. We've open source software, we've commercial software, and we've software controlled infrastructure. So SDN, network function virtualization, automated, and so on. And the benefits. So we've Freedom of choice, and removes vendor lock-in. So that's really important. We've a huge amount of choice now from hardware. There's 5, 6 different hardware vendors, and obviously lots more than that on the software side. Greater control over our network infrastructure. If we're going down the SDN route with controllers and things like that, a lot more control. And then the most important part for me is the rapid innovation through the ever-growing community. So the OCP, TIP, and the ONF, just to give you an idea, say they're looking to build a box and they get the specifications, 3 or 4 guys go and build it, and multiple software vendors come in. So there's a massive team of people working on the end-to-end solution and the product. So the innovation cycle is way, way quicker than it used to be. An awful lot. You can imagine if Facebook, Deutsche Telekom, Telefonica, and Vodafone are all working together with 2 hardware guys and a couple of software guys, things are going to get built quicker. There's obviously CapEx and OpEx savings. High CapEx savings, the more you put in CapEx, the more OpEx you get. So there's a bit of a yin and yang situation there. Okay, very briefly on the physical side of things. Merchant silicon vendors, we've Broadcom, Marvell, Cavium, and Intel. Tofino as well with their P4 programmable chipset. And Broadcom has a market share of anywhere, depending on reading, anywhere between 75 and 90%. With multiple bare metal vendors, primarily Taiwanese ODMs. So EdgeCore, Quanta, Delta, Celestica, and UfiSpace. And then on the switch side for data centers, 10, 25, 100 gig, Trident 2 and 3, they're from Broadcom. And then 100 gig and 400 gig Tomahawk 2 and 3, again, Broadcom chipset. And then since 2016, there's been a very successful move hardware-wise into that telecom space. So there's some of the projects, SIBA, Trellis, OOPT, which I'm going to look at now very briefly in a second. And this has all kind of been possible because of Broadcom's Strategy and X chipset. So within that, you have Qumran AX, MX, Jericho 1 and 2, Ramon, and so on. And that's allowed us to build completely new devices. So the cell site DCSG is a cell site gateway, cell site router, aggregation routers, open packet transponders, that's the Cassini. And I'm just actually going to look at one of the projects now within TIP. So this is in the backhaul section of TIP, and this is the open and optical. There's a quick poll for you guys. So if you just click the answer, it'll go off your screen. So if we look at this, it's not just individual devices, it's end-to-end solutions they're trying to build. So users on his mobile, radio signal up to the mast, down to the baseband unit, into your cell site gateway. So this is a white box cell site gateway, into your aggregation router, white box aggregation router, depending on distance, into your white box transponder, muxed, amplified, demuxed, and now you're back to your core router. So you see, it's not just individual products, it's an end-to-end solution. But I just want to actually look at the cell site gateway in a little more detail, just to show you what actually goes into the individual devices within the end-to-end solution. So there's a little video going to run down the bottom left. Hold on, I'll start it again if you want to watch that while I talk away. So first off, there was a working group created by Vodafone, Telefonica, TIM Brazil, BT, and Orange, and they all came up with a design specification that would suit their network needs. Then EdgeCore, UfiSpace, and Delta, the hardware companies went off and built the box to their design specifications. And what they ended up with was a 1RU cell site router, supports layer 2 and layer 3 with MPLS and with time sync. And it's basically built for the existing 2, 3, 4G, and obviously the new 5G infrastructure. And the reason it was actually required was because mobile base stations now connect to the cell site gateways using SFPs or RJ45s. But the 4, and certainly not the 5G networks, they're going to need 10G SFP pluses. So basically the cell site gateways that are there at present are not fit for purpose anymore. So who's involved? Hardware wise, as I mentioned, EdgeCore, UfiSpace, and Delta. And on the software side, there's multiple options, including our own Exaware, who we're going to hear from now in a moment. If you're interested in any of these products, contact EPS, or you can find them at the TIP exchange, or speak to ourselves or speak to Exaware as well.